Hello everyone, this is Meera Jaydevan, and on behalf of Avas Kerala, I welcome you all to yet another webinar session. Some of you are regulars of the Avas webinars and some of you may be new to this. So let me start by briefing the Avas and its Kerala chapter. Avas Foundation is a global organization that works to improve the security of software through its community-led open source software projects, hundreds of chapters worldwide, tens of thousands of members, and by hosting local and global conferences. Its Kerala chapter was founded in the mid of 2006 by a group of security professionals and enthusiasts. The chapter conducts events like seminars on the security and socially relevant topics to create awareness on security and safety among the common public. It also provides opportunities for the upcoming software communities to present their contribution to secure application development. Today we will be discussing on the topic leveraging security psychology, and the session will be taken by Mr. Ashish Paliwal, Information Security Officer at a leading MNC. He is a security innovator and change agent with extensive information security, risk and infrastructure management expertise in delivering complex and medium to very large scale security programs. He is proficient in translating evolving industry risks to ambitious technology roadmaps and robust security programs. He also holds numerous certifications like CCSO, CISM, CPISI, and so on. Now, coming to the topic, human risk is real, and information and cybersecurity awareness trainings are not assuring and adequate. In this webinar, Mr. Ashish intends to touch upon with walkthrough of an attempt to draw and preempt assurances with a subjective yet out-of-box preposition to influence and get influenced while not endorsing it entirely the myopic compliance-focused de facto industry approach. So now, before I hand over the session to Mr. Ashish, we would like to hear from you. So please drop your queries in the comment section and we will be responding to it after the session. Welcome Mr. Ashish to our Avas Kerala chapter meet. You may please take over the session.
Sure, thanks a lot, Meera. Thank you for the very warm, kind, and a very humble introduction. Hello everyone, namaste, very good evening, very good afternoon, good morning, wherever you must be joining in from. As already Meera called out, the agenda of this discussion is to talk about how we can leverage psychology for effective security management uh, within your respective organizations. So what I've done is I have furnished my contact details on the bottom left of the screen. I hope my screen is visible. And please feel free to reach out to me. I am fairly active on LinkedIn. Will be more than happy to connect with you and see on how we can collaborate and take this initiative forward. Before we jump into the discussion, just wanted to explicitly call out certain caveats. So all of the views that would be presented are my own personal. There is no association with any entity, legal or otherwise. This discussion will be a little more application and certain use case that will be discussed. I understand from the security awareness standpoint, compliance is very important. But now here what we are talking about is going a step further and trying to see on how is it that we can draw certain assurances uh, by no ways undermining the importance of compliance. This is again, like I started, again, a very subjective topic. So we'll be touching upon what are the good and better practices of doing stuff. I'll try to be very impersonal, not targeting, calling out any particular organization or any individual. And the discussion points will be very IMO heavy. IMO is in my opinion, and my opinions are based on my modest experience of close to 12 years in this security business. All the references have been furnished in the presentation that I'll be running you through. And I look at it, it's more of knowledge, experience sharing, collaborative and a learning session. And of course, this is not there are no commercial motives of this presentation or this seminar. So with that said, quickly moving forward. So we know we are in the era of memes today, right? So I thought I'll start a bit on a lighter note. We are all are aware how security awareness, as a stream, if I may call it, in the bigger game of information cybersecurity risk is managed within the industry. What you see on the screen is a little bit of optimism, where usually the resources or the people within the organization are assigned certain trainings, and with fingers crossed, we really hope that we see some good behavior with regards to the do's and don'ts of effective security management or effective security behavior. Now, the irony here is, as you can see on the top of my screen, it says traditional approach, but it is also an approach that most of the organizations are employing even today. In fact, I'll go one step further to say that this kind of training and awareness and CBT, as we call it, right, computer-based trainings, or be it even classroom for that matter, it is again a billion-dollar industry in itself. So, what I feel or what I have seen in my experiences, I see a little bit of imbalance over here, and I'll be, of course, getting into what I mean by that imbalance. Some of the areas that we look at, or some of the very important areas that these kind of native or traditional security trainings do not cover, is some, as you can see on the screen. First is, of course, we know the human risk is real, but do the employees, from a junior resource, from a GET, from a fresher to the CEO, does everybody equally understand, realize the importance of the human risk within the whole, looking at it from the bigger picture standpoint? Some of these trainings, not some, in fact, mostly all of these trainings are not adequate in terms of both coverage, in terms of both influencing positive behavior, and I'll be getting to the culture part as well. Third and most important point, these trainings are not assuring. What is the assurance that we draw that we have assigned certain trainings, be it for the new joiners, be it for people changing departments, divisions, people, be it your refreshers? What is the value? What is the takeaway for security practitioners like myself and yourself, that now that this has been done, we know that we are covered from one standpoint? And last is, of course, compliance focused. Like I mentioned earlier, as you can see, a small snowflake over here. I am all for compliance, but what more? How do we go beyond just the compliance part of it? So I would like you to take a minute here and reflect back, and I'll be putting certain questions on the screen, and I would want you to give not more than 5 to 10 seconds on answering those. The section that you see on the left. Just try to think through some of the real incidents within your current organization, in your current role, that you might have seen. It could be a web browsing infection, it could be real phishing statistics, maybe whatever security appliances that might have been deployed. There, of course, are ways of aggregating all of this information, or maybe data leakage events within your organization. So in your opinion, what do you think is the root cause, and how do we fix this solution? Because this is not a technical introduction of a technical solution, or a software or a hardware based appliance is not going to fix this. Do you really think the awareness trainings or the periodic refreshers that companies are running today give any sort of assurance? That kind of brings me to the next point, right? It is very commonly called out and seen in the industry that human is the weakest link in the security chain. Well, I have a different opinion about it, from the standpoint of, we as human beings have never been smarter in the history of mankind. On some fronts, we have weakened, but from the standpoint of intelligence, we have never been better. We have never accomplished things that we have done today, and the things that we will be achieving very soon in near future and going ahead. So what I feel, in my opinion, is human is a primary threat vector. It is not that we as human beings do not understand the importance of security, or the people in the organization, whatever level that they may be at, that they do not understand security. But where do we get lost? Is it is not the priority, or it is not on the mind, or the teams are little too busy, caught up with the delivery, or we don't know. There's no hard control and no one point that we can say that where is it and how is it that we are missing out on. And we'll again be talking about a more well-rounded approach on how we can address this going ahead in the subsequent slides. Now, I'm not a literature expert in English or otherwise, but I kind of bumped into this terminology which is called as perfunctory, right? It is called as, or it is an adjective which is defined as an action carried out without real interest, feeling, or effort. Now, again, I want you to think back about your security team who is conducting these kind of trainings, be it for the new joiners, be it during induction, be it during the lateral movements that may be happening in your group companies. What is the credential of these trainers? Now, by credential, I am not talking about the degrees and certification part of it, but credential from the standpoint of the influence that someone can create within the organization who's conducting such kind of sessions. And more than anything else, how is the behavior being influenced as an outcome of these kind of sessions that are being conducted? So it is just a something to kind of think of, and we'll also be getting into on how can we address these points. So before getting into that, just wanted to call out certain analogies, parallels that I am trying to draw from things that I see around me. May or may not be related to security, but let me walk you through those as well. So what you see on the screen is the starfish and the spider, right? This is both a concept and a book written by two gentlemen. The names, as you can see on the screen, Ori and Rod. And the concept is about the power of a leaderless organization. It's a management concept, and I'll tell you how is it that I'm relating it to security. So here it goes. From the concept standpoint, what you see on your right is a spider. If I cut the head of the spider, it's a done deal. Whereas on the other hand, if I cut one of the legs of the starfish, it'll grow another leg. So much so to the extent that it might become a new starfish altogether. And that is the message that is being propagated even from the leadership standpoint. And there are a lot of organizations like GE or YouTube who have immensely benefited from something like that. So basically, it is about instead of okay, I'll quote it now from the security standpoint as well and from leadership standpoint as well. Instead of having a more centralized command and control kind of leadership or security governance mechanism, if we can bring in some sort of uh, starfish related governance or leadership mechanism where the dependency and the effectiveness is not dependent on only the head of the spider, that can bring in immense benefit. Now correlating it to security side, what we are doing today as industry is I feel the spider approach, where somewhere some operations governance risk compliance management teams assign security trainings, be it again computer based or classroom based. The effective of that training, uh, again, how often is it tested, and what happens after that? What is the assurance that we take away from that? So what I'm kind of trying to get to is, like sometime in the last week we had the privacy day. I think on the 9th of Feb we'll be having a safer internet day. The whole of October is recognized as the cybersecurity awareness month. So these are basically the platforms and the times when we kind of, every organization in the industry tries to roll out a lot of initiatives. The starfish way, basically, of course, training computer based, classroom based would be one of the legs. Something else could be setting up certain Q&As, or maybe setting up certain conferences, or having certain leaders speakers coming up in your organization, or hosting certain kiosk for security awareness, or having certain kinds of quiz. So basically, the reliance, we do not see in our, again, security language, single point of failure. I'll be again getting into the details of the subsequent proposition part. But before I do that, there's another point that I want to explicitly call out over here. Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, or double A as it is known. It may sound like I'm straying away from the subject a bit, which I am. And what I'm trying to get to is, So Alcoholics Anonymous is a support group. Their presence is pretty massive across the globe. They are in more countries than the countries where a common sport like football has penetrated. Now, what I was looking at very keenly is what is the problem that these guys are trying to solve. They're not trying to solve the problem of alcohol. They're trying to solve the problem of alcoholism. And what I mean by that is there's a lot before, during consumption, and after consumption of alcohol that kind of leads to problems and is disastrous. How I relate it to security is what we have been doing is we are trying to solve the security problem. And the inspiration that I draw is, why don't we look at it as, which kind of led me to coining a term by the name of secureism, the ism part, of which of course security is a part of it, and security kind of then also becomes a byproduct of it. And it's not just security that is a byproduct of secureism, it's also compliance, it's also client confidence, it's also dollar value at the end of the day in the long term if we look at it. But again, this is another concept, another analogy that I am trying to draw. I have been working on this actively, passively for a while now. I have also published a couple of articles. I don't know how much time it will take, but I might also come out with a book in some time. I don't know how much that time would be because I'm not doing it in full-term capacity. To further go ahead and talk about the case, I'll be taking few names and some studies that has been done till today, right? I have highlighted the names of the researchers. Please pardon my pronunciation. Leron, again, who is a security researcher, has published a book in 2016, the image that you can see on the right, The Psychology of Information Security. Now, what Leron has done here is he's at high level identified three common reasons of non-compliance. The first reason being no clear reason to comply. How many people within our organization do really understand what is it that we are trying to do, and why is it that we are requesting someone to not click on something, or to not use plain text, or to not do whatever that we suggest? That is one of the challenges. Second point being the cost of compliance is too high. Now, by cost of compliance, it is not just referring to the monetary cost, but also the cost of engagement. For example, if I try to draw some parallels and compare it with, say, for example, being a whistleblower, right? So for me, to not blow a whistle is easier. For any end user to not report something is easier. It takes effort, it takes awareness, it takes whatnot to kind of do, and therefore the cost becomes a little higher. There's also at times a little bit of apprehension that, should we be really doing it, or if yes, how should we do it, etc., so on and so forth. And last point being the inability of compliance. Meaning, now when I again so I'm trying to elaborate here. By inability, it could be inability on multiple fronts. One could be from the technical standpoint, one could be from the cultural standpoint, one could be from the people standpoint, from the process standpoint. So at high level, these are the areas. So basically what I have been doing as part of my study is trying to do a little bit of my own research with regards to trying to come up to speed that what has been already done in the industry, and what are the common factors, the overlapping elements of all of these studies. Moving further, again, three more names as you see on the screen. Ikovos, Adam, and Angela. Again, these guys published a report in 2013 which talks about certain principal agents of security awareness. And what these principal agents do is they completely abandon the traditional command and control approach, the approach that is being engaged today very actively, which the approach comprises of a long list of do's and don'ts as part of whatever trainings that is being done. And therefore that kind of brings me to the point that there is more to it from the standpoint of this command and control. Is this the bottleneck? Is this the spider approach? And if not this, then what can be the best way forward? Couple of more studies that I'll be calling out. So this particularly is not my favorite slide because it is a little too texty for my liking, but I have intentionally retained this for your future references. One ongoing research on susceptibility of persuasion by the University of Cambridge endorses similar school of thought. The same school of thought that the command and control approach is may not be the best way forward. And again, to call out certain specifics, Dr. B.J. Fogg, who's the director of Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University, has come up with 6 persuasion techniques or technologies, as you can see below, as listed below. Now, what is interesting here is the definition of susceptibility of persuasion. So they say that it is a phenomenon of the subject who's persuaded but is influenced by the plausibility of the story. It does not talk of assignment or being asked to do something or being asked to just comply. We are trying to uh, touch upon the value that is being that we are trying to create and trying to bring in some positive influence. So we've been discussing a lot on the problem statement as of now. Now let me get into the proposition of what is it that I'm suggesting, and we'll of course be looking into how will we go about it. So what I am proposing here is, again, it is conceptual. What I am talking of is building a control ecosystem by tying together the psychological and behavioral traits influencing security decision making to positively impact and also preempt certain decisions that an employee or an end user may or may not make going ahead. And how would we do that? So first plan could be, uh, we know that even today psychometric tests are being used by a lot of organization during the hiring process. Now that is more from an HR standpoint. What I am suggesting is conducting certain tailor-made psychometric tests with emphasis of certain security traits with that of a personality influencing any positive or negative behavior, and venturing beyond just security trainings into areas of behavioral modeling. Now, if we want to impact and positively influence the behavior, we cannot do it by just trainings in whichever mode the training would be in. The second plan is something where I kind of introduce the concept of security behavior reflection score. I'll be getting into what that is about. But before that, so this is not again a waterfall approach where we have to do plan A first or plan B first. Depending on the appetite, depending upon the culture of your organization, either plan A in isolation can be started or maybe looked at plan B. And coming to the security behavior reflection, SBR score, what I'm referring to is, for example, at the start of any year, everybody in the organization gets assigned, say, 100 points or 1,000 points, and any negative behavior is penalized with the deduction of points. Say, for example, any phishing case, say, -10, or for reporting an incident, say, +10. And if in case there is no action, it is, say, -5. Any data leakage incident, -25. So basically, now we are playing with this 100 points around. We could also urge the managers to consider this scorecard for promoting for promotions and appraisal decisions. So what I'm kind of trying to get to here is, currently the training mechanism, the awareness ecosystem that we see in the organizations is pretty toothless. And I know it is a very strong word, but I say it from the standpoint that the way security trainings are going on around the organizations across the world is that there are certain sections, and then there are 30-minute, 1 hour, 1.5 hour long trainings. After every 5-10 minutes, after every section, subsections, there would be certain quizzes. If you pass, you may not be able to proceed further. You may have 3 attempts, 5 attempts, depending on how you have set up your awareness program. But that is one of the reasons why we are not getting much enough assurances, in my personal opinion. And also, uh, kind of trying to bring in the role of leadership as well, trying to ensure that even the management is kind of made responsible for the behavior of their teams, their respective members. Now, I understand, see, this is again, like I mentioned earlier, these are subjective points, but there are no hard rules or thumb rules with which we are working. It is again on depend will very heavily depend upon the culture of your organization. One of the option could be managers of the reportees with maximum minimum scores can be rewarded or trained in accordance based on the performance part. Moving further, now I'll talk about certain POC, some tests that I had taken up in my individual capacity for understanding and for learning purposes only, with a very small sample set. So for training, for testing, I use Cattle's 16PF, 16 Personality Factors Survey. It is a free test for, again, learning. If you want to actually onboard something like that, there are licensed editions, versions available. And there are many companies in the industry, one of which I can remember is Metal, who's into this psychometric test business. Now, I'm not endorsing any company. I'm just calling out certain names that I might know. And what I did was, basically, for the simple test that I conducted, some of the results that I saw is, for the negative traits, for the offenders, some of the reasons that came out comprised of the tension score of the offenders was high, the vigilance scores were low, there was a little to none apprehension in either sending out some data or clicking certain links. Privateness, I am not sure how do I correlate it with the security subject, but I'm sure there is something in it if I dig deeper. And then there is self-reliance and social boldness. Of course, boldness is there to kind of take up things without an afterthought. And if I talk of positive traits, again, employees who are emotionally more stable, who are open to change in terms of be it compliance or adhering to certain requirements, rule conscious, again, self-explanatory, reasoning, meaning with a more rational mindset with regards to what is it that we are doing, why is it that we are doing. And warmth and liveliness, I am again not sure how is it related to our subject, but for me, the takeaway of this was that this was a little bit of reassurance from the standpoint that these behaviors that came out of this test were to an extent in lines with the expectation, right? So originally when I started this more as a hypothesis testing, where I thought, you know what, let me start with that assumption that all of this is not related in any way. And then as I started conducting these tests, as I started speaking with people, all of my hypotheses or assumptions were kind of being ruled out. So what can be done here? The takeaway here is, we know so there are certain traits, and we can align our security program, our security approach, to align with the positive or the negative traits that we see. And furthermore, again, there can also be a collaboration with the HR, where there will be an element of overlap with regards to what is it that they are trying to achieve from hiring standpoint, from personality standpoint, and what is it that we would be more interested in. And more than just trying to figure out, we would also want to go a step further and try to preempt certain behaviors and actions proactively. So some of the challenges that we would see with the approach and the proposition is that the psychometric tests are, again, point in time indicators and are not 100% foolproof. If I am not in the best state of mind as of now, or maybe if I am a little stressed, or maybe if I've just driven back home after a long 2-hour drive, certain tests, certain responses may vary, but it is still an indicative. It may not be accurate. Next point is on the dollar aspect. All of these tests are charged on per test basis. So if you have your company headcount of, I don't know, 1,000 to 10,000 to 200,000, it'll again be charged on per test basis. And then you'll also have to take a call on how frequently would you want to run these tests. And it's also not related directly to your headcount. You might also want to factor in what is the churn rate within your organization. And maybe a starting point could be, there are certain roles or certain levels at which you might want to start. Again, there can be different approaches of going ahead with this. Next is the number of psychometric tests. Again, can be very high depending on the size of your organization. Next point is addressing the privacy aspect before initiating these tests. We may want to let them know, and in some cases also take consent from the employees, joiners, candidates, that this is something that we are getting into. For the security behavior reflection scoring, there will be again a very heavy reliance on allied teams, because we are trying to come up with some sort of. So basically, what we are doing as part of this SBR security behavior reflection scoring is In plain simple language, we are doing some sort of risk profiling, and there is no one team who would be doing this. We would need a lot of inputs from a lot of allied teams, like your incident management team, be it your data leakage, your DLP management operations team. It could be your exchange messaging from messaging standpoint, and then of course you'll have to also see and kind of come up with a plan to see how would you want to monitor this, and how would you want to validate false positive, and the volumes with which you would be working with. Some of the workarounds could be, if the dollar aspect is again bit of a problem for starters, would want to we can start with creating certain psychometric tests in house with best effort basis algorithm. We can also review the HR onboarding policy for including certain permissions for running these psychometric tests. And some of the recommendations and way forward can be, these psychometric tests could be rolled out for new joiners and offenders as well, and this should be again tailored to fit your organization context and culture. Every industry will be different, the risk associated will be very different, so there will not be a one size fit all kind of a solution. And again, to kind of touch upon the behavior aspect, there are SCBT, right? Structured cognitive behavior trainings can be imparted in addition to the regular infosec training. So one takeaway could be just try reaching out to your L&D team and try to see, if they already leveraging this, or do you already have this in place, and what can be the best way forward. And also, if rolling out the concept of SBR scores at an enterprise level can also be a massive change. So my idea here is to not rock the boat. We know we have been able to manage, we are doing whatever we are doing. There can be a lot of resistance, there can be a lot of challenges initially there, because from the standpoint of either budget, from management buy-in, in terms of the success of what is it that we are trying to bring in over here. So we can start small and see how organically you go ahead and bring this in within your respective organizations. Another interesting article by the name of another article which says that awareness isn't enough, it's time to change behavior. Now this article has been published by Jinan Paj, who's a principal analyst at Forrester. And what we are talking of over here is the ABC of security, where A stands for awareness, behavior, and culture. And what I'm saying is, we do all this, and what we expect as an end result is certain assurances. Now, as part of this article, there is a certain call out of how our industry has evolved over a period of last I think 3 decades. So ours is not a very new industry. I think we've been around passively, actively for more than 3 decades. What you see on the screen, the past is being referred to, say, last 10 odd years. And how things are progressing is, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, security, we had to explicitly communicate. Not everybody was aware. There was a lot of efforts required to promote same. There was a fight for gaining certain influences and getting certain budget provisions. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have to get provisions today. The influence part is not existing today, but it is relatively simpler compared to what it was a decade ago, or maybe before that as well. And where we are at today is the human element. And what we are doing is, as part of our current training portfolio or our current trainings, we have got extensive content libraries. We have amazing administrative features with regards to how many people have taken the test, when was it last taken, how would we compare it. Basically, the analytics part kicking in, that how have we fared as an organization, participation part, and which front of security needs more focus. Is it the business email compromise, or do we need to what is it that we need to reach out to the mid management with? Do we also need to conduct classroom based trainings for the physical security guards or the office boys within the organization? All those things we have really evolved from that standpoint. And then the assessment part also, like I mentioned earlier, right after every section there are assessments. And then also there are a lot of companies that have come out today which are trying to gamify this whole security awareness gambit. And now what I'm kind of trying to get to, and I am kind of chiming in with Jinan's point here, is that how effectively and how do we address and influence the behavior, and how does that kind of influence the overall culture of the organization. And my personal interest lies in what is the assurance that we draw from it. So moving further, there's another point that I would want to call out explicitly is about engaging. And the current security thing is really not engaging. And this is again would want to elaborate a little more on Janan's point on how is it that we can engage. So what she's called out over here is in the current scheme of things, our security programs should have a lot more humor and fun associated with it, which is not the case currently. And the parallels that I draw from it is, or an indicative reference if I call it, is the way Amul is going about their whole promotion thing. It has got, I believe, one of the finest creative teams in the country for sure. And how can we fit in, or how can we bring in that approach for our security objectives? How I also have some friends, colleagues, some contacts in the digital space, in the marketing, digital marketing, and campaign management, email marketing, and all that industry. And what I've seen is they have floated with this whole concept of trying to get a little creative with the IT side of the world, be it for security or otherwise. But I've not seen a lot of companies or associations who have kind of jumped in with both their feet, trying to go all out and trying to come up with something like this. Where if I talk of this example alone, it says better soft than sorry. So soft in Hindi is clean, and it also says Amul always safe. Now, if you look at it from the bigger context, Amul, the way they brand themselves is they consider themselves to be a brand of India. That's a very big thing, right? It is way beyond just another business or just another they're trying to make money. They have positioned themselves such a way. So what they're doing here is they are propagating that message of this whole corona situation to kind of take certain precautions, and meanwhile they're also sending out a strong message that Amul and their operations and their products are safe, and whatever due diligence, whatever safety measures are to be taken are being taken care of from their side. Now, what I have been thinking is, of course, it'll require a lot of time, effort, a lot of creativity associated with it. But what is the inspiration that we can draw from something like Amul only as a reference point? There's no end to creativity point of it. We are not confining to Amul, but again, that is more of a concept per se. Next is your leveraging micro and nano learning platforms. The shortest security training that you would have seen in your organization, just ask yourself, which is the shortest security training that you attended? What was the duration of that? Anything lesser than 30 minutes, I'll be surprised. Anything less than 15 minutes, I don't think so. So what the point that is being propagated here is, we don't have to wait for 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 90-minute sessions for imparting this. We have technology by our side. We have, based on whatever your preference could be, leveraging chat applications like Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram, or any other for that matter, or maybe even from email marketing, promotion campaign perspective, security promotions can be done leveraging services like MailChimp, Email Octopus, HubSpot, etc. There are a lot of such services available. Furthermore, from business continuity standpoint, there are a lot of notification mechanisms are also there. Even these are pure play from security standpoint services. From security business continuity optics perspective, there are solution tools, messaging services available, and these are not very expensive. So how can we leverage that? Instead of having 2 hour session once in a year or twice in a year, how about we remind our end users with a 5-word message once a week, or once a fortnight, to also ensure that we do not overwhelm the user with a lot of things. So that is another thing that can be looked at. One out of experience, one word of caution that I would want to explicitly call out, going a step behind on the creativity, humor, and fun part of it, we'll have to be a little more mindful and sensitive about what is it that we pick up as our subject to kind of bring in the fun aspect. It can really backfire. It is a double-edged sword. But if utilized effectively, it can do wonders. Moving forward, so again, we are talking of influencing the behavior change by nudging. Nudging is the keyword over here. Nudging your audience at the point of risky behavior. So, be it at the point of risky behavior alone, or be it even otherwise. That kind of brings me to a couple of companies that I have seen, and even as a part of this article that I read, the company is called Elevate Security and SiteSafe. So the space that these companies are in is, they call position themselves as HRM, human risk management. So what they are doing is trying to, again, the same concept of profiling exists, but as the resource does different activities on his her system or moves around the facility, there are small reminders, there are small nudges in different ways with regards to, for example, somebody trying to send out certain data. Maybe if there can be a pop-up that says that this is your risk score or this is your risk profile, and maybe if we can bring up that, increase the visibility of something like that. Again, it has to be a very mindful decision of how we go about it, but that is something that can really influence behavior, right? I would not want to be reminded again and again if my behaviors are not good, and I would want to personally do something about it. And I'll also feel good about myself if my security score is good. It'll be reassuring. Moving forward, again, using experimental learning and gamification to create understanding. Now, this is not an unexplored territory. A lot has been already been done. Even if I talk of again, Google, they have something called as Interland. Interland. I think it's some free game created on. You can look it up on the Google. Interland by Google. Even especially for kids, they have gamified the whole thing. You have to encrypt the password to the next stage and things like that. Check it out. I think it's real. It's really cool, especially for the kids also. They'll love it, the whole gamification part of it. From the enterprise standpoint, there are a couple of more tools like Kahoot and Mentimeter. Now these are tools like for creating some sort of a game. I'll be giving a glimpse of what I'm talking of. So what you see in the screen is Kahoot, right? So what you can do is, what I had done is I had created a questionnaire for security awareness. Now this is very old, okay? As you can see, this I had created some 3 years back, and basically there are simple five. Now in this part of this quiz, I think I had created some 10 questions. This is again all part of testing. If you want to onboard this, do check it out, and you might have to go for, of course, the enterprise edition license version. But this can really help from the standpoint of, instead of giving a laundry list of 20 things to do and not do for your any new joiner, maybe if you can put it in interesting quiz format, and if you have, say, 50 people as part of your joining induction, it suddenly brings in the competitive factor as well. After every answer, it'll show how many people answered correctly, and what is the score. The factors that contribute to the score is, of course, the number of right answers and how fast somebody answers. So suddenly now there is competition, and now suddenly people who were pretending to be awake, or pretending to not get caught while surfing their mobile under the desk during the induction, are suddenly in the game. Similarly, Mentimeter is another tool where you can create certain questionnaires. Now what you see on the screen is, for example, this is again a very simple example. Okay, all of this can be tailored. You can create different quiz for middle management, for senior folks, and this can really do wonders, as against please do these things or please don't do these things. And this is again a glimpse of how many people answered. Like in this example, 15 people answered false, 4 answered yes, and then at the end of every question, it'll show some sort of a leaderboard, and for every question, people get 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds, depending. Everything is configurable. So again, what I'm kind of emphasizing on is not the tool, not Kahoot, not Mentimeter, the whole concept of gamification. And there are a lot better ways as well of doing it. So I think that can also be leveraged. Some of the references as we come towards the end of the session. So again, human-centered security. Now this is a podcast I kind of recently bumped into. I've just started listening to it. It is interesting, I've got some interesting insights. Again, I'm not endorsing this alone. None of these are paid reviews. I wish they were, but do check it out. It is available on Spotify. You can also check it out. Join via your browser as well. And there's a ton of content out there. Psychology of information security I already referenced earlier. I think just a day or two back, I kind of bumped into this post on my LinkedIn feed. I haven't read this, but it is in my to-do list, and I'm looking forward to see what's in store. So this could be some of your starting points for those who have interest in this side of thing. Uh, so the way I would want to conclude is one of the better way forward could be some sort of a starfish approach, and some of the attributes that will really define the success of the program that you may want to launch, which is, again, you have all the flexibility in the world. We can choose what is it that we would want to start with. We don't want to go the big bang approach. We don't want to rock the boats. We don't want to even for the user, it should not be overwhelming. That earlier it was easy that once in a year I get trouble to complete certain training. Now every second month, I'm asked to do something. We are again trying to slowly but positively influence the behavior, leading to the positive culture of the organization. And what will play really big part is the creativity of your respective teams. How is it that we as a security community collaborate? Because at the end of the day, we all run out of ideas. Creativity is not infinite, but of course it takes time to kind of come up with more stuff. And more than anything else, it'll also take a little bit of courage to kind of explore this uncharted territory, and have a little bit of faith. And this is again this is not it's not something that we put in today and tomorrow we start getting the results. It is going to take time, so keeping the management also in confidence uh, will play a critical role. So I kind of bumped into again another company by the name of Security Mentor, and these guys basically have the way they are positioning themselves is uh, the fun aspect of how to go about security trainings, awareness, and learning. And what they quote is, learning is directly proportional to the amount of fun you are having. So what we are talking of is, what is it that we do for your dopamine to kick in? And dopamine kicks in usually when there is some excitement, when there is some surprise. And there are a lot of offerings of this company. Again, I'm not endorsing this company, but and I also do not understand. I have not had actually the time to look at all of their offerings, but there are certain interesting propositions that they have made. So I would also want to check that out a little more in detail, and so can you. So, with that said, I would want to, before opening up for Q&A, would want to thank you all for patiently hearing me out, and a big word of thanks to OWASP Kerala chapter for inviting me for this talk. Big word of thanks to Adarsh sir. Thank you so much. I'll be happy to take questions, any discussion points from here on. Over to you, Mira.
Thank you, Mr. Ashish. So now we are open to the Q&A session, and our speaker will be responding to your queries. So please do come into your queries. Um, I have a question here. Is the SPR you have said about that SPR rating, SPR score, is it related to the phishing attacks or every human negligence? I mean, can it be related to all negligence, human negligence?
Yeah, so it depends on how is it that you, so what are the threat vectors that you intend to, the insights, the data, the information that you intend to collect. For starters, of course, you may not be able to collect 100 vectors for starters. Maybe you can start slow, but there is no, again, limit to it on how is it that you might want to What is it that you may want to limit? There's no limit to the SBR part, is what I kind of mean.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Also, the SPR does the SPR score affect the performance? Like, if it's so, then it's a bit scary for the employees.
Yeah, so that's actually a good point that you brought in. So I there's nothing to be scared about from that standpoint, right? And actually, so what you are kind of chiming in on is basically till today, if I use your language and say the people are not scared, that is kind of an indication of a toothless mechanism in place. And what we are trying to do is trying to objectify the outcomes and the assurances that we are trying to draw. Again, relating it to your performance score, appraisals, promotion, and all that is again a very subjective decision which has to be taken by the individual organization. But of course, we have a lot of options at hand that can be looked at. In terms of the framework part, it does have a potential of incorporating it in many ways.
Thank you. Let's wait a couple of minutes to see if anyone have any queries.
Sure, sure. So while we are waiting, just wanted to explicitly call out that again there are no
Uh,
hard takes to it. There is no enforcement that we are talking of. But again, there can be an organic approach that can be taken, and there is potential. And this, I feel, uh, will eventually grow. Will take time because we are trying to aspect we are trying to influence the culture aspect, behavior aspect, which is not easy. See, all this whatever that I just talked of, it is all of this is easier said than done. It is going to take a lot of time, effort, investment, both in terms of not just money but in terms of prioritization, in terms of resource, in terms of focus, and it'll take time, but I personally see a lot of potential in it.
okay. We have a question from Tanmay. In the organization, information security is still taken bit lightly from the employees. Even if the orgs conduct the trainings, employees still find a backdoor. What should be the approach taken in this?
So yeah, I understand your point, Tanmay. So basically, I'm trying to move away from this cat and mouse game. It's not about we trying to bring in something and then the employer trying to find a loophole or a backdoor. End of the day, what we have to realize is we are all on the same side, and we are all trying to help and complement each other in terms of the business objectives with which we are part of the organization. And in fact, see, again, like I mentioned, right, creativity, collaboration, and courage, these are the three attributes. Maybe for something like this I would be very keen to sync up in person with Tanmay to understand what is the backdoor and how is it that we can work together, and would want to give the assurance that we are not trying to do a policing job, because if we go down that path, then there will always be backdoors. What we are trying to do is make every resource mindful of the activities that they do. But thanks, a good point, Tanmay. Thank you for bringing that up.
Again, from Tanmay, enforcing the strict policies hampers the company's image, and if these policies are not implemented, then it jeopardizes the trust relationship of the organization.
Yeah, so not again making it a chicken and egg problem. I think collaboration is the way forward. So again, if we look at the long-term benefit of it, uh, so see, if we want to really discuss, we can get into the specifics of what is the impact of the jeopardy that Tanmay is referring to, and how important is that, and what is it that we intend to leverage that with, and what is the benefit that we can get by bringing in some the concept like this, and in the long term, how is it that they can help, and how is it that we can be a front runner in the industry to implement something like this. Again, the possibilities are endless in terms of how creative we can get. But again, on personal note, I'll be more than happy to sync up in individually with anyone to kind of handhold on way forward, and how is it that we can best achieve benefits of something like this.
From Matthew Rose. Matthew from Bancourt Gurusco Solutions, striking the balance in terms of bringing fun element in training, should it not be driven from top management as part of the culture? Your thought on this?
Yes, in terms of culture, it does a flow from the top. But what I also feel, see, if I am a company who is into the security business alone, I would, if I'm into consider, say, if I'm into, say, manufacturing, or if I'm into, say, some sort of textile industry, maybe I'm not trying to raise any question on the competency of the management, but the priorities will be very different. And because this is not an industry rampant uh, practice which is extensively used in the organization, something like this, in most of the organizations that I've seen, the communication channels are very transparent. Something like this, the security team, the risk compliance team will be best positioned, because we are the one, the security team is the ones who's actually working on ground and can relate to the best security practice in terms of culture. Of course, we would want to get it vetted from the management as well, and even the management is very well aware of whatever practices that we talked upon here. So it is about getting the influence from the management and taking the management support for cascading this culture furthermore downstream within the organization. Good point, nonetheless, Matthew. So, if not here, if not now, please feel free to reach out if there's anything.
One more question from Tanmay. As an information security officer, what are your recommendations regarding percent of budget allocation for implementing security in organization?
Okay. I think that is a good question. I don't know, Tanmay, if you would have that insight or not of your organization, but typically, if we are at again, it is very subjective. It depends on what industry you as an organization you are in. What are your priorities? What is your roadmap for next 3 years, 5 years? How heavy are you on technology and technology investments? But if I were to give you just a ballpark figure, 2% of revenue, which is again a very big number, uh, there's a lot of things that can be done with that. A lot of organizations may have again 1%, 2%. It is again very subjective. I'm just giving out certain numbers for some indicative references, but will very much depend on the environment your organization is in. But it's a good question, because not a lot of not everyone thinks it's a sign of we are trying to look at security from a top down approach, from the optics of the management, that we know that if this is the kind of the site with which management looks at security, these are the kind of allocations with which we work, that also kind of speaks in volumes about the security importance, the security culture, the security roadmap of any organization, and it's always not always. Uh, See, coming up with numbers like this is very difficult. All the more because of the whole concept of profit centers now. For a bigger organization, and one of my ex companies, which is Accenture. Uh, the budget related decisions are not taken single handedly and with just one data sheet. There are a lot of company related, geography related, line of business related, competency related factors that come in.
Okay, thanks, Ashish.
Thanks.
I hope there are no more questions. So it was a very informative session, and we are very grateful for your expertise and also for your valuable suggestions. On behalf of Avas Kerala, I extend my sincere thanks to you for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mira. Thank you all the attendees. Again, a very big shout out and a vote of thanks to OASP Kerala chapter. So, for those of you all who may not be aware, just check their website. There's some tremendous work, a lot of great security related initiatives, value deliverables that are being taken up by the OASP. A whole as an organization and as the Kerala chapter as well, they have engaged with the Kerala police as well, and there's some fantastic achievements, initiatives that are being driven and run both at the state and the national level. So thank you so much once again for this opportunity, and I wish you all very best. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thanks to all who tuned in. Also, the Avas Kerala is inviting quality papers for upcoming webinars. So, if you're interested to be one of our speakers, please share your papers or the topic details with us. And for more details, you can visit the Avas Kerala website and the social media handlers. Also, we have our Discord channel available, and please check it too. To know more details on the topic and dates of the upcoming events, please keep on checking the announcements in the social media channels. See you all again. Stay safe. Thank you.